is our next mission to launch. So you're going to hear a lot about those in a few minutes. Just as some overview, the Planetary Mission Program Office, we got it right that time, is here at Marshall, and we manage a portfolio of missions that are in the Discovery, New Frontiers programs, and solar system exploration. These are all robots. Who likes robots? Robots, right? Sending robots out into the galaxy to explore. Sounds like some of the science fiction you might see here, but it's not. This is real. These are autonomous robots that go out and explore the solar system and return some really amazing discoveries. And I am lucky to be a part of this and a part of this team. And with that, I think I will turn it over to you guys and let you guys talk about your missions. I guess we'll just go down the line. We'll start with Solveig, who is fun fact, is a scoutmaster and an avid bird watcher.
Let me see, is this even on? So yes, bird watching. So Bennu is actually named after the Egyptian god and is depicted as a heron. And you can see this as well as I just said down. But if you imagine this inverted, when the sample arm comes up, when we took tag, this is actually the part that hit the asteroid, and it's solar panels made kind of a wide formation. And it would go down and that kind of looked like a bird, and it was actually named by a 9-year-old at the time. He's now 18, he's been a few years. And it was a contest that, I guess, NASA, that was how it got its name. So I guess a brief overview of the mission. So Cyclops launched in 2016, and it went out to an asteroid Bennu. This is a carbonaceous asteroid. So we thought it had a lot of carbon and different types of building blocks of life. And when I talk about the building blocks, I'm not talking about creepy little crawly things that come out of the ground. I'm talking about amino acids and carbon bonds and different things that start life. You know, everything alive has those chemical bonds in it. And that's what we were looking for on the Bennu asteroid. And so we went out there, we navigated around it, we imaged the heck out of it. There's some beautiful images online. We collected our sample. We actually collected a lot more than we thought. It was very exciting. It landed in, so the spacecraft came back towards Earth. It took about 2 years to get back here. And last September, you can kind of see up here is our little sample return capsule. And last September, this was jettisoned off the spacecraft and came in and landed via parachute in the Utah desert. It was very exciting. It's awesome. And then we took it to Johnson Space Flight Center down in Houston, Texas. And we opened this container and took out our, what we call our tag SAM, our touch and go sample container. It's about the size of a dinner plate in real life. Kind of like an air filter from your car on top of a dinner plate. And that was what had all of the sample we collected. And if you were following in the news, we got it in September. We took it there, we were really excited, and we got stuck. There were 2 fasteners we could not get open. So as engineers and scientists, we said, all right, we can fix this. So we designed a special screwdriver tool. It has kind of a clamp to fit on top of the sample head without hurting it, right? And then it had some torque wrenches in there so we could unscrew those last 2 fasteners. We were able to open it in January and see all the amazing material that was inside of it then. And so since then, we've been collecting it and sending it out. And I guess one of the really neat things about this to me is that NASA collects these materials. We have lunar samples and our science stars are Bennu samples. We hold about 70% of that for future generations. So we're sending out some of it now to our elite scientist team. There's teams over the world. We actually have a brother from the Vatican who's on our team. You guys are Queen fans, so Brian May is actually on our team. And so we have a really neat team of talented scientists, and they're working on some of the sample now. But the rest of it is being held so that as the next generation and even the generation after that grows up and develops new ways to look at this material or sample it or analyze it, it's going to be there ready and waiting. And so to me, that's the neatest thing about this mission. And as I said, we've opened it, we're starting to look. You'll be seeing more and more data come out as these analyses on these first couple samples move forward. And I guess I will hand it off because I know Asteroid Autumn was when OSIRIS-REx came back and Psyche launched.
Yeah, so I'm Brad Zalowski, I'm the mission manager for the Psyche mission. So this is Psyche spacecraft, and we are headed to a metal asteroid. So Solomon talked about a rubble pile, a rocky asteroid. Psyche is a metal asteroid. It is the largest metal asteroid in our solar system, which is why it's of special interest to NASA and to the mission. So the asteroid itself is about 140 miles or 220 kilometers in diameter on average. And it's made up, mostly we think, from ground observations, we think it's mostly made up of nickel and iron, but it may have other rare precious metals as part of it. Around the time of the launch, they kind of did an analysis of the size and what they thought the makeup of Psyche was, and some people put their brains together and kind of came up with a cost of $10 quadrillion of all the material on Psyche. So imagine that large number. I had to Google that because I don't know how big that is. It's a 1 to 16 zeros, 1 to 16. So it's about 90 times the size of the global economy. So you can imagine the amount of metal there. So just to put it into context, I did also look up a couple other things. So to put that in comparison, you could buy 66 million SpaceX rockets. That's a lot. Right? You buy 3 billion houses in Beverly Hills, for those that are into that sort of thing. 10 billion Lamborghinis.
Wow.
With the price of the Psyche asteroid. 50 trillion pairs of Air Jordans. And just like 3 quadrillion tacos at Taco Bell. So we're like but we're not going to be landing on Psyche. We're not doing any mining in the asteroid for this mission. This is purely kind of an observation reconnaissance mission. We're going to be orbiting the asteroid Psyche. So a little bit about the spacecraft. So the spacecraft is a model here in front of me. It's about 1/35th scale. So the satellite itself, the bus, is about the size of a van, to put it in perspective. And then the solar panels, when it launched, were folded up and then put into the top of the rocket fairing. And then right after launch, about an hour and a half after launch, the solar array is deployed. And so when the solar array is fully deployed, Psyche spacecraft is about the size of a singles tennis court. So it's a pretty substantial spacecraft that's flying out through the solar system. And when we get to Psyche, the spacecraft has 2 imagers that are going to take high-resolution pictures of the asteroids, and we're going to get some really cool pictures because right now, from the ground telescopes, we have a picture of Psyche that's like 4 pixels in size. So you can't see any of the details. So any of the pictures that you see of Psyche are sort of artist renditions of what we think Psyche might look like. So when we get there, we're all together going to learn what Psyche looks like. And that's going to be really exciting. And that's going to be in 2029. So that's a 6-year journey to get to Psyche. There's also what they call a spectrometer, which is going to measure some invisible energy waves that are being emitted by Psyche. And through lab work, we can know what the different elements are made of by measuring those wavelengths. So looking at different parts of the asteroid, we're going to be able to say, hey, this part of the asteroid is iron, this part is some other metal. So that's going to be really exciting. And we also have a magnetometer because we're going to be looking for a residual magnetic field around Psyche. Because there is some thought that this large metal asteroid is actually left over from the Tesla core. So our core is a molten core. We think this might be very similar to Earth's core. So that's one of the reasons we're going to go visit that. So Psyche launched on October 13th of last year, 2023, from Cape Canaveral. It was on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. We had reusable boosters. So the 2 boosters for Psyche came back. I think they're actually going to be used for Clippers, right? Yeah, so they were there. So the cool thing is I got to be there for the launch and sat in one of the VIP control rooms and had the headset on. I got to watch them fill the rockets. So that was, for my career, that was one of the career highlights, to be with the PI and the NASA headquarters team that was there. To go run outside and see the rocket fly overhead, and then like 5 minutes later see the boosters come flying back down across the street. It was maybe the coolest thing I've ever seen. So if you ever get to go to the Cape to see a rocket launch, definitely do it because it was a life-changing type experience. So that's a little bit of overview on Psyche. I'm going to hand it over to Scott Bellamy. He's going to talk about Europa.
Good morning. How is everybody? Great. So I'm Scott Bellamy. I'm the Europa Clipper Mission Manager. And we are going to fly to Jupiter and visit Jupiter's moon, Europa. Europa is one of only 2 other bodies in the solar system that we believe to have an ocean below its surface. It's actually thought that the water on Europa is more than the entire amount of water on planet Earth. So we're going to go out there and we are going to examine the asteroid to determine the thickness of its ice crust, which is ever presently changing. And we're going to hope to fly through some geysers that shoot out of the surface of the moon and sample those to see if we can detect what kind of elements, chemicals, maybe some amino acids, and we can find some trace evidence of microbial life on the moon Europa. Do we have anybody out there that likes 2001? Does anybody remember what we were told in 2010?
Attempt no landings there.
No landings there. Well, fortunately, Europa Clipper will not be landing. It will be doing a series of orbits. It has to go over an orbit that far out past Jupiter, and then fly back in and come in a crazy orbit around Europa, because Jupiter's radiation environment is so extreme that if we spend any significant length of time, actually in the vicinity of Jupiter, it will just fly spacecraft. So Clipper is launching in October 2024 this year. And we're not just using Psyche's leftovers, we have a great vehicle office. We're going to spend about 5.5 years cruising out to Jupiter. We're going to first do a nice little flyby around Mars, and do a nice tour of that. And then they'll come back and do another trip around Earth and head out to Jupiter. And then we're going to spend about 6 years doing science at Jupiter. We can't come back. We're going to have to dispose of our spacecraft, and at the moment we're going to fly it into Ganymede, which is one of the other moons of Jupiter. And if you remember, we've known about the Galilean moons since about somewhere in the 1600s. They were first discovered by Galileo, and they were Europa is one of the 4 largest moons of Jupiter. Don't ask me how many moons Jupiter has. I don't even know if we're stop counting. But I am going to keep it. That's about as much as I'm going to say right now. So if you have any questions, I'll be waiting for them.
All right. Can you guys hear me? I'll pick it up. This isn't awkward at all. So, you guys talked about the rockets and the reusable boosters. So, obviously, y'all are craft meet propulsion. I'm going to kick it over to Brad. Why don't you talk a little bit what's different about Psyche's propulsion?
Yeah, so the Psyche spacecraft is getting to Psyche using solar electric propulsion. So we have a series of 4 what they call Hall thrusters, which take energy that's captured in the solar panels from the sun and converts that into power. That then runs the thrusters that run off of the xenon propellant. And the solar electric propulsion is more efficient, and so the spacecraft has to carry less propellant because of the efficiency of those engines. And so what's really cool about Psyche is that this is the first time we're flying these type of thrusters, the Hall effect thrusters, in deep space. And so, in a way, this is sort of a technology demonstration for future missions, because one of the challenges that we have as a space community is having too much mass on our rockets, right? So we can only launch spacecraft that have so much propellant. And so we use alternate energy sources, nuclear power, fully solar. In this case, this allows us to fly with further distances. Now that we've been able to demonstrate in deep space for the first time with the Psyche solar electric propulsion propulsion thrusters, that this is a technology that's possible. So it's like, kind of the thrusting, think about, like driving down the highway, speed, trying to get to Psyche, you're using those thrusters, and then as we do more subtle maneuvers, like turning into your neighborhood or something like that, speeds. As we get closer to Psyche, you do trajectory corrections. There's a set of nitrogen cold gas thrusters that put out a puff of nitrogen and kind of put the spacecraft where it needs to be along the trajectory. So there's two different ways that the spacecraft is moving. One, kind of doing the fast track, and then others doing more subtle.
All right, thanks, Brad. So Brad talked a minute ago too about the size of Psyche. You referenced it's about a tennis court when it's fully deployed. Secret from you guys, these models are not all the same scale. So Scott, I'm going to kick it over to you. Why don't you talk a little bit about the magnitude of Clipper?
Well, anybody ever visit Statue of Liberty? If you took Europa Clipper from wingtip to wingtip, it is almost as wide as the Statue of Liberty is tall. It's about 20 feet tall for the main spacecraft body, about 100 feet across. If you stand next to it, you can stare up and get a pretty stiff neck looking up at the spacecraft. It's got these very huge solar arrays because, we're out there near Jupiter where the sun's dimmer than it is here on Earth. And so we have to be able to collect enough energy to power all the instruments that we're carrying. So it's kind of, if you can imagine a person standing next to the solar array, I don't even know if you can see my fingers from there, that's how tall the average size person is compared to the height of the solar arrays, which were, it's something on the order of the same size as the spacecraft itself. And don't ask me how many watts it is or something.
So then you spent some time down at JSC. What was it like to actually see the sample for the first time? This stuff no human has laid eyes on before. We had pictures from the asteroid. This is the first time people have actually seen this material. What was that like?
It was just unreal. And, one of the things that happened in our mission when we collected, so if you ever watch a video of the touch and go, it's called TAG, and it happened in 2020, it made a huge crater. We really kind of went down, and we almost went over just under 2 feet into the surface of the asteroid. So rubbly pile. So we just kind of kept going until we put our head thrusters and some nitrogen and moved back out. And one of the ways that we were going to measure how much mass we had was we were going to put the arm out and spin the spacecraft. We had an empty tag-SIM measurement. And then when it had mass in it, we would do that again, and that delta would tell us how much mass was in there. Well, the tag-SIM head was so full that the first images we got back of the full tag-SIM, you can see material just flying out of it. And so we said, well, we can't spin that, we'll just fling everything out. So what do we do? And so we had this huge meeting. It was 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, and it was, everybody, all hands on deck, going through the images and deciding that yes, we were just going to go ahead and bring that back and go with our estimates that we had enough sample. And so when the sample comes back, we really had no idea how much material was going to be in there, and we were very, very nervous. And as soon as we opened that clamshell thing, and we saw you can see images of it online. There is black material, there are, tiny stones, there's dust. There was so much material just trapped on the surface that, we were even just insanely overjoyed. I still get goosebumps when we think about how we opened that and we saw material. And, we had made the right call and we had all of this material. We were supposed to bring back at least 60 grams of material just from that opening that capsule, and just on the surface, the avionics deck of our sample head, there was 70 grams of material. So we had brought back more material than we anticipated, not even in our sample collection unit. And seeing that material for the first time, and it looked exactly like the images of Bennu. When we looked at Bennu, it was this really dark, kind of bouldery looking asteroid. And looking at this material, it looked like tiny little Bennus. We actually took an image of Bennu from the spacecraft and an image of the sample here on Earth, and you can't tell the difference between the two. And as we've been moving forward, and even when we were able to open it in January, seeing some of those giant particles, those, we call them stones of interest, right? They're larger stones. And just being able to pick those up and they're not crumbly when you touch them and the tweezers and things. And so, I mean, it's just been an unreal adventure to get to see this and see that it looks exactly like the images that we had. And how is that surface weathering and some of the other thermal effects and just getting to do that. So we're just now scratching the surface. But being able to see that for the first time it was just great. It's probably one of the highlights of the career.
All right, thanks, Sylvain. Open it up to see if, I asked a couple of questions. That's an icebreaker. No offense, Scott. But no, not offense. If you guys have some questions, there's a mic there in the middle. So feel free to come up and ask some questions. I hope they're really hard because these guys deserve some really hard questions. So go ahead if you have anything. Otherwise, I'll keep asking questions.
There's a hot mic back here, and if you need me to come to you, I got a mic I can bring to where you're at.
Hey, thanks for joining us in Huntsville this year. We really appreciate it. In terms of OSIRIS-REx, what I was wondering about is how do you design and develop a spacecraft for such a chaotic environment? Like, what are you using to capture it? Is it just an open pan that you stick into the asteroid? Are you worried about electrostatic effects? How long is your communication delay between what you can tell the robot to do and how do you account for all of that stuff?
So those are really good questions. And so to answer it, we call Bennu the trickster asteroid internally because as we designed our spacecraft and our sample collection unit, all the data we had from our space telescopes, our ground telescopes, all the IR data, said it was this amazingly smooth, sandy surface. So we designed everything to kind of just, 50 meters, we could just come in, we were going to use a LiDAR, we were just going to kind of come in and scoop it up. And when we got there and saw the rocks, we were like, oh, so now what do we do? And so there's twofold to this. So what we ended up doing is we just collected a ton of data and we developed something called natural feature tracking, which is almost like a camera lens. We uploaded an image, a photographic image of the surface, and then programmed the spacecraft to navigate through those images to find that sample site. And keep in mind, when we talk about this, the asteroid's spinning, right? And so the asteroid is spinning. Our spacecraft is spinning along with it as it's coming down for that. And so if you watch online, you'll see where the head kind of adjusts. That's where it's finally lining up because it's coming in on a spinning asteroid as it's moving. And so that was how we handled that challenge. So I will tell you the whole idea behind the sample mechanism. So it's kind of like an air filter. On top, it's round, and on the bottom is a ring, and it has little Velcro pads to try to pick up rocks, right? And if you imagine a circular air filter, and there's some mylar flaps that kind of hold material inside of it, right? And the idea was that we would touch down on the surface, and we would fire some nitrogen bottles, and that would force that material back up into that air filter. And the way that design developed is it was a group of Lockheed engineers at a picnic. And they had their red solo cup, because that's how you start all good picnics, and an air compressor, which I don't really know why the air compressor was at the Lockheed picnic, but engineers will do weird things. And it was apparently a bet of, hey, I bet I can collect a bunch of this dust in my solo cup with an air compressor upside down. And that is how the OSIRIS-REx sample design was originally developed, was at a Lockheed picnic. But yeah, so that was kind of how we did that. We did test it in fake regolith. So regolith is the surface of the asteroid, right? And we made up, fake beds of mostly sand to test it. And as soon as we saw that it was full of rocks, we did test some with larger rocks at that time with our engineering unit. But at the same time, we are already at the asteroid. We have to make do. What are we going to do? And I'd say it really surprised us when we did our impact, we did our tag, and saw that a lot of that material was, very porous, it was fried. I mean, it just kind of, you can see the crush. And that speed is 3 meters. I mean, it's very, very slow. And so it's a very light force when you watch that. It looks like it's just coming in. It's actually very, very slow, very, very light. And it just kind of kept going in. And so, again, Ben a trickster. But yeah, so hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you. So just one other aspect of that, your question talked about getting messages back. I don't remember what light time was.
Yeah,
That's one of the
20 minutes.
about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
When you get up to Jupiter, we're talking over half an hour, close to an hour, and even longer when you get up to the solar system. So that's something that I think is really cool. When I say we send robots out to do the exploring, these aren't remote controlled things, right? These are all pre-programmed. They have hazard avoidance. They're all autonomous. And one of the things I love to do in my spare time is mentor robotics teams and see people here. And what I always tell them is there's usually an autonomous portion of that. I was like, come on, guys, this is the most important thing, because when you send robots out to other planets, there's no real-time control of it. This is all, you've got to think about all the different scenarios and what can happen. And so when OSIRIS-REx was getting that sample from Bennu, all its contingency scenarios, its safe modes, and all that stuff is all pre-programmed. So this is not something that we're joysticking around. And every time I think about that, that blows me away. All the numerous engineers we have and scientists that put together all these scenarios and that autonomous stuff. It blows me away every time. And, it's part of the job that I love.
And like Brian's saying, you have this, you think you've covered everything, and you hit the button for it to send the signal, and you wait. And I can tell you that I think it was 20 minutes for the sample. That was the longest 20 minutes. We're all sitting there waiting. So yeah, like you're saying, but it's amazing when it actually works.
We had a question over here.
I know you said they were all different scale. So how much of the assembly is actually done at Marshall here locally, and how much time you spend going back and forth between your testing and then the final launch and the Cape or wherever that's going to be?
I'll let them talk to the specific missions, but we at the program office level, we manage all of these projects, and they're all implemented across the country at other institutions. So JPL, Otter, APL, Physics Lab, Propulsion Lab. So Lab Learners guys, talk about this. We do some testing here. We leverage a lot of the resources we have at Marshall for testing. It's a big thing. But these are all assembled across the country. You guys can talk about your specific missions.
Yeah, I mean, these are all very large teams each. OSIRIS-REx is being assembled at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. JPL was Clipper. I'm sorry. Flashbacks. Yeah, OSIRIS-REx is being built at Clipper. Look at my one. Yeah, Europa Clipper is being built at JPL, and it was built in partnership with the Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland, with Goddard Space Flight Center also building parts of the spacecraft itself. And then everything was strategic, for assembly. And after it finishes the work there at JPL, it will be shipped down to the Cape to complete the assembly before it's put onto the launch vehicle and launch.
I will look into that. So what's really neat about the missions that our office manages, the Discovery New Frontiers program, is that these are competitively selected missions. So these are ideas that the scientific community comes comes up with, they propose over the course of years. We have senior, principal investigators, which are, 30-year, senior scientists at some of our best institutions that are coming up with these ideas. And so, for example, the Psyche spacecraft, the principal investigator for that mission is a professor at Arizona State University, Dr. Lindy Elkins. And so she manages the science team portion. JPL, Technical Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, manages the project and did all of the integration and the design and the operations for Psyche. The spacecraft bus was actually built by a company called Maxar. And so what's really neat about all these missions is that they're large enough size that they take into account, like Brian was saying, different centers and different organizations, both NASA centers, JPL, private sector. Psyche is a good example. Maxar is a private company. They build a spacecraft and it's based off of a kind of off-the-shelf type spacecraft bus that Maxar has developed for similar type missions. And so our missions are unique in that way, in that it brings together a large sector of the community, and they're very diverse teams, which is a very important part of what NASA does, is to build teams of people from the government, from universities, and private sector, because that's how you get the best ideas, is to bring in people from all those different sectors. So, Psyche is a really good example of that, and all of our missions typically have really good collaboration across different centers. It's a truly one NASA, one United States, and even international collaboration efforts. We have international partners that contribute instruments. NASA contributes instruments or components to other international missions. So it's really a global effort to explore space.
Why don't we, those are pretty good answers. Let's go ahead with some more questions. I just saw how much longer we have, so I want to get through as many questions as we can.
So with Europa, you said that you just moved robots and stuff like that. Do you know when or if we'll ever be able to land on one of Jupiter's moons like Europa?
Well, we have a guidance group called
For New Frontiers missions, again, manage a couple different programs. Discovery wide open to the community. New Frontiers programs are guided by the National Academies.
the National Academies is what I was looking for. So they would highly recommend that we go to. They highly recommended that we go to Enceladus, which is the ocean world moon of Saturn. And Enceladus is actually an mission too. It's called Dragonfly. It would be nice if we'd also land on Europa. Hopefully we'll see some future missions that are able to do that. But we can look forward to Dragonfly making its journey in a few years, and we'll see what happens there.
Well, the next question is coming up, but there has been a little bit of work done to look at landing on some of these, including Europa. Scott mentioned the radiation environment on Jupiter is so intense that it would take quite an engineering feat to get something there to survive for a long time. So there's a lot of challenges that we have to overcome. There's definitely interest in those things. And maybe some of the younger people out here will work on that after I retire. Look forward to it. So next question.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming to visit and talk to us about these amazing projects. My lovely wife and I, Taylor, raise your hands. We are proud Huntsvillians. We've lived here and just enjoyed every moment of being a part of a community that is distinctly Southern, but simultaneously has a strong focus and influence of STEM fields, aerospace, engineering. A little story, my daughter is in preschool, just going through all our letters, just to get to the letter V, and it was valve was like the word there. So just, I mean, it really is so pervasive. But we love the idea of being part of a community that takes doing good science and developing amazing technology, as much as we see at the Marshall Space Flight Center, and of course at all the NASA centers and private contractors around the country. But as a community member, it really is such a unique opportunity to influence the types of things that are happening at NASA. And so my question for you guys is how important is the involvement of the communities, not just around the NASA centers, but just really nationally across the U.S. And what type of influence maybe perhaps does that have on your projects?
So I can answer that for the scientific community with OSIRIS-REx. There is a large international community interested in, cosmochemistry, astrobiology, and these associated fields that are a little bit new. And going to different conferences, around the world, and having different people come up and see that support and have them be so excited. There was a lunar and planetary science conference a couple weeks ago, and there was standing room only when they were presenting just the very initial parts of what we've learned from the asteroid bending. And that community involvement and that worldwide support of researchers who can work together and kind of come up with new ideas and new developments, that is insanely important. Anytime we've gone places with the OSIRIS-REx team, it has a following in the community. I think it was the tag was one of the most watched things in the pandemic. Because science is something that everybody can get behind. There is no inequalities or differences. It is science and it speaks for itself, and that's something that everybody can support. And having the support of the community, I think, helps with when NASA does its announcements of opportunities, or when they do their different decadal surveys and different things to say, what is the public interested in, and what are the scientific areas we need to focus on. Having some of that community support just makes a huge difference. So we do feel the community love, and we greatly appreciate it.
And I'll just add that, for us, it's really thrilling to see, so many people that are in the audience here today that just want to hear about the projects that we're working on here locally in Marshall. The reason we do these type of events is to teach the community about space, because we're traveling across the solar system, not just with these robotic missions, but with the upcoming Artemis missions that are sending astronauts back to the moon. We're doing it as a global community, as a humanity, right? So it's really great to see so many people enthusiastic about NASA, and that really drives everything that we do. Is we see that enthusiasm. It's one of the things that helps me get out of bed in the morning to go and look at what the budget's going to be. Okay, great, I got to do that today. But then I think, wow, we're sending a spacecraft to go explore a metal asteroid. How cool is that? So the enthusiasm that we get when we see, go out and talk to the public, and we have tables at different events, and we have a great comms and outreach team. Daniel and Stephanie do an outstanding job. So you probably see us out in the communities. Always stop by and say hi to us. We love to talk about our projects, and so we're really enthusiastic. Like I said, we're just really thrilled to see the turnout and the enthusiasm that everyone has for our mission. It's really exciting.
And another thing, it's like when we do the outreach events in like schools, and we're talking to high school or maybe middle school kids, and you see the engagement, you see the excitement in their eyes, and you see just that energy that we need to keep pushing forward as a society, as a world. It's very rewarding when you get to go to an event like that and engage with these younger adults. And you're just so optimistic about where we're going as a society, and you hope it continues and grows and continues that way.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
I'm really excited for this next question. I hope it doesn't.
So,
You have to speak in three ways.
on the OREX model, why are the different things colored and what are the names?
So on the OREX model, why are there different things colored and what are their names? All right. So this has been practice for a while. Okay, so, and I don't know if I ever gave a scale. The OSIRIS-REx is about 10 by 10 by 20, so it would actually fit in this area. Its solar panels are these blue that like to fall sometimes, so I'm trying to be careful with this model because it's really cool. But these are about 10 feet around. So the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft itself has, I believe, 5 different instruments and different cameras. And so we have kind of an infrared camera, we have a visual light camera, and another camera. And the camera suite is, in fact, it's called the OCAMs because everything with OSIRIS-REx and NASA is acronyms. So we have a lot of those those are kind of over here on the side, and that way it could have tilt around when it was taking samples. We actually have cameras along our tag SAM arm as well. And then we'll have some other things. Let me see what else is on here. So that was the purple, right up there. And then, yep, we have our reaction wheels back here. And those help with navigation, is that right? Yep, it's been a minute, sorry. Controlling of it, yep. This guy right here is our deep space network. So how do we communicate? This is kind of how we communicate with Earth as we are down at the different...
That's not the flying saucer we want.
That is not the flying saucer. We don't talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
And then there was one other, it's way over here. I was looking for the Rexus. And I think it's over here in the blue. It's really small. So there was an instrument it's called the Rexus, and it was the OSIRIS-REx X-ray instrument. And it was actually developed by students at Harvard and there's another institute at MIT, thank you. And they actually they found a black hole. With one of the astronauts, as we got closer to the asteroid, they actually discovered a black hole with that instrument. And there was a sister instrument on the ISS that also verified that. So that was kind of neat. So thank you for that question.
Hey guys, we got time for one more because there's already a giant line outside for our VIP visitors from Australia for the next panel.
Yes, hi. I wanted to know more about the Europa mission, and specifically about the moon Europa itself. I've heard speculation since I was young about the possibility of life, micro life forms under that liquid ocean. Are there any other factors about Europa, besides the fact that there's a liquid ocean, that make it a viable candidate for life that we know about, or is it mainly just speculating because of the ocean under the surface?
It's the ocean, it's the ocean that has, and what we have over the years come to learn about the ocean itself in terms of the potential for having the chemical composition that would support microbial life. We've been studying Europa since the Galileo spacecraft. It was the first spacecraft to do a concerted effort to actually study the moon itself. And from that, they've put together the hypothesis that the ocean of Europa, it's the entire structure of the moon itself, even the possibility that it has, like in our ocean, we have hydrothermal vents on the surface of the floor of the ocean that provide the heat that is necessary to keep that ocean liquid and support the development of microbial life. So using the analogs and studying what we have been able to learn before the Clipper mission actually gets there, the evidence builds up to support that it is a very good chance that we will find something, but we won't know until we actually get there, and hopefully flying through a plume to be able to study that is going to be opportunistic. And so hopefully we'll be there long enough that the opportunity will present itself.
Thank you.
Hopefully it inspired somebody, inspired us, this network,
So 2 things real quick. I think we're going to try to do a fun selfie from the stage. You guys want to get a picture of the crowd out here? It will end up in the Marshall Star. That is the Marshall newspaper here. And also, while they're getting that ready, on your way out, me and Miss Stephanie over here. So everybody say hi, Stephanie. I love you guys. We're going to have some nasty pictures while they last as you exit over here. So, here we go. Hey, everybody, smile away for the picture.
Complete nerve authority.